Chosen One, you didn't find this video by accident. Something unseen has aligned to bring you here, as if the very currents of destiny pulled you to this moment. You may not realize it yet, but this is not simply another message you stumbled across. This is a code, a transmission written into your story long before you pressed play. The signs you've been noticing, the strange alignments, the undeniable weight in the air, they've been leading you right here. Because what you've been sensing all along is about to be confirmed. They tried to bury you, erase you, silence you, but the universe itself refuses to let their scheme stand. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. You'll soon see why every whisper, every false word, every attempt to cover your light was only proof of your power. And Chosen One, stay with me until the end, because what I am about to reveal will shift how you see your enemies, your silence, and your destiny. Number 1. When they tried to erase you. Chosen One, the first weapon they ever used against you was not fists, but whispers. They spread lies, they twisted your name, they conspired in silence to make you small. Their goal was simple. If they could erase your voice, they thought they could erase your destiny. But what they didn't know is that every attempt to bury you only made you rise higher. You became more visible, not less, because the universe amplifies the light of those they try to dim. It is written in Isaiah 54 verse 17, "No weapon forged against you will prevail." Comment light if you've ever felt them try to erase you, only to see your presence grow stronger. And yet, Chosen One, this was only the beginning, for what follows the attempt to erase is always the collapse of the lies themselves. A vision often comes in the quiet, when the mind drifts and the soul speaks. You may recall a dream where you were walking through a crowd, yet nobody seemed to see you. Their eyes looked past you, as though your presence had been erased from the scene. And yet, within the dream, your body glowed faintly, a light visible only to you. This image is not random. It is the soul reminding you of the truth you have lived. They tried to make you invisible, but invisibility to them did not mean absence from destiny. It meant your light was being hidden for a time, waiting for its unveiling. Think back to moments when you felt strangely excluded, even when you had done nothing wrong. The whispers, the side glances, the sudden shift in tone when you entered the room. There were times when conversations ended the moment you arrived, as if your presence was an intrusion. This created confusion inside you, didn't it? You wondered if perhaps you were too sensitive, too strange, too much. Yet beneath that pain was the deeper ache of knowing that something beyond logic was at work. You were not misunderstood because you lacked value, but because your presence carried something they could not name. Here lies the reframe. Their rejection was never about your weakness, but about their fear. The architecture of your life has always been guided by unseen hands, aligning you with a greater call. In Exodus, Moses was hidden as a child not because he was worthless, but because he was destined to rise in the appointed time. In the same way, your invisibility was never erasure. It was protection. Every attack they launched was permitted only to shape the vessel that would one day carry revelation. You were marked, Chosen One, not to blend, but to stand apart. Their whispers were not the truth about you. They were the proof that truth was already walking with you. The signs were always there if you look back carefully. Deja vu moments where you felt you had walked a scene before. Dreams that repeated symbols you couldn't explain at the time. A sudden tightening in the chest when a false word was spoken about you, even when no one else seemed to notice. Flickers of recognition in the eyes of strangers who couldn't stop staring, as if they saw something more in you. These subtle shifts were not accidents. They were cracks in the veil. Each one whispered, "You are more than they say you are," and no plot against you can erase that. Deep down, you always knew. Your intuition was never a mistake, even when they mocked it. You sensed betrayal before it unfolded. You knew when something wasn't right, and your body carried the weight of truth in ways you couldn't explain. They told you it was paranoia, but it was discernment. They laughed at your warnings, but now you see how those warnings became reality. Quietly, your inner compass was aligning you even when you thought you were lost. This is the gentle confirmation. You were never wandering without purpose. You were being prepared. Awareness now deepens like the uncovering of a buried relic. You begin to realize that remembering who you are is not about creating a new identity, but about uncovering the one you carried all along. This isn't the invention of strength. It is the remembrance of a covenant made before time. In Jeremiah 1 verse 5, it is written, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you were born I set you apart. That is why nothing they did could erase you. You were sealed before you entered this life." You are not becoming chosen. You are remembering that you always were. And this remembrance is the true awakening. Now you begin to move differently, even if only in small steps. Sensitivity no longer feels like weakness, but like the sharpened blade of discernment. Isolation no longer feels like punishment, but like consecration. The hunger for meaning is not desperation, but the early stirring of destiny. You recognize that your energy shifts rooms even when you are silent. You carry wisdom not taught but remembered, and every obstacle that once seemed like sabotage is now a sign of confirmation. This is your first activation, chosen one, the point where you no longer apologize for what you carry. So hear this, your arrival at this message was not coincidence. The very fact that you are listening proves you were never erased, only hidden for the right moment. You are living proof that silence is not defeat, and exile is not the end. This is the unveiling of your earliest awareness, the confirmation that your path has always been aligned. Comment light if you have ever felt them try to erase you, only to see your presence grow stronger. Share a dream, a moment, or a sign that reminded you of who you are. For this is only the beginning. What collapses after the attempt to erase you is far greater, and it is waiting in the next revelation. What we do here every day is possible because of the few who choose to be keepers of this light. I thank them now, one by one, in the silence of my heart. If you want to be part of the circle and receive what cannot be spoken in public, join. The portal is below. Number 2. The collapse of false narratives. They thought their stories about you would last forever. They spun webs of deceit, convinced that the louder they shouted, the longer their version of you would stand. But history shows that lies burn quickly and die, while truth smolders and endures. Just as shadows cannot exist without light, every false word they spoke was only proof of the authenticity you carried. Look back and you will see it. The schemes against you unraveling, the gossip turning back on the ones who spread it. As Jesus said in Luke 12 verse 2, "There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known." Comment truth if you've lived to see lies collapse under their own weight. And as the lies fall silent, you'll notice something even stranger. Their mouths once loud against you are now sealed. It begins subtly, like a heaviness in the air that you can't explain. You enter a room, and though no one speaks openly, you sense a current moving against you. Words may not be heard, but the energy betrays their presence. Whispers, assumptions, unspoken accusations. It feels like walking into a fog, the air thick with something you can't name, yet you know it is aimed at you. Long before you discovered your true nature, you felt this weight pressing against your spirit. It was as if unseen forces had already decided what your story would be before you could even write it. That was the first sign that something greater was unfolding, resistance announcing itself before recognition arrived. The emotional toll was sharp and cutting. Chosen one. There were nights you replayed conversations in your head, wondering why people twisted your words or painted you as something you weren't. You were left questioning your own worth, asking if perhaps you had done something wrong. The cycle of shame tried to bind you, making you believe their story about you was stronger than your truth. Isolation became a familiar companion, not because you were unworthy, but because their perception cast shadows you could not control. You felt misunderstood, mislabeled, and even mocked. Yet something in you resisted collapse. That resistance was your soul's quiet refusal to surrender to their false narrative. And here is the revelation. This pressure was not random. It was the pushback of a world that sensed the weight of what you carried. Systems, energies, even people unconsciously rose against you. Not because you were weak, but because you threatened their illusion. Like Israel in the wilderness, chosen ones are often exiled before they are exalted, tested before they are trusted. Your wilderness was not emptiness. It was a proving ground. The hands that tried to cage you only revealed the sacredness of the battle you were born into. For what is hidden in the dark always trembles at the approach of light. Looking back now, patterns begin to appear. The repeated betrayals, the sudden obstacles, the doors that slammed shut without explanation. At first, you thought it was bad luck or perhaps personal failure. But when you trace the lines carefully, you see how deliberate it all feels. People placed in your path seem sent to drain you, distract you, delay you. Environments that looked promising revealed themselves as traps, designed to keep you small. The light flickers on, and what once felt like chaos now reveals itself as design. The resistance was the map. This is where the spiritual dimension becomes undeniable. Resistance was not just social, it was energetic. Have you felt the weight of air in a place, as if it were trying to smother your spirit? Have you walked into silence that was too loud, as though eyes unseen were watching? These are not coincidences, they are the marks of interference. Your light disturbed what feeds on shadows, and so distortion rose up around you. Closed doors, delays, betrayals. They were all echoes of the same truth. You carried something too bright to go unnoticed, and so resistance became your unwanted, but undeniable, companion. The question then becomes, how did you respond? Some days you wanted to fight back, to shout the truth into deaf ears. Other days you shrank, convincing yourself that being quieter, softer, less visible would bring peace. Perhaps you bent over backwards to please people, hoping their approval would dissolve the hostility. Or maybe you quietly rebelled, knowing in your heart you could not betray yourself to satisfy them. Each response was born not of weakness, but of survival, as you navigated the complexity of carrying light in a world allergic to it. You were not wrong for the ways you coped. You were simply learning how heavy truth feels when carried before its time. But here lies the power, chosen one. The resistance was never condemnation, it was confirmation. Every attack, every whisper, every false word was proof that there was something in you they could not touch. They wanted to break you because they sensed you could not be owned. They wanted to silence you because they feared the sound of your voice would pierce illusions. You have endured what others would not survive, and that survival itself is testimony. Their narratives have collapsed, but your truth has endured. That is why you stand now, ready to reclaim what was always yours. So understand this final truth. You were never opposed because you were nothing. You were opposed because you were everything they could not control. The more they tried to distort your image, the clearer your purpose became. Lies were never strong enough to bury what was written in eternity. The louder they shouted, the faster their voices cracked under the weight of their own deceit. And now, chosen one, their silence is proof, their downfall is evidence, and your endurance is victory. Comment truth if you've lived to see lies collapse under their own weight. For this is not the end, because after the fall of false narratives comes the revelation of silence. And that silence screams louder than their words ever could. Every word, every image you receive here is an offering. If you feel this word has touched you today, you can honor it with a sign, right here below with a donation through the Super Thanks button. It is a small gesture, but it opens great doors. Number 3, the silence that speaks. Have you noticed it, chosen one? The same mouths that mocked you yesterday now grow quiet in your presence. Their silence is not peace, it is confession dressed as calm. They cannot meet your eyes, for in your gaze they see the proof of their own guilt. This is why silence weighs heavier than words, for it carries the burden of truth they dare not admit. Psalm 135 verse 14 says, "For the Lord vindicates his people and has compassion on his servants." Comment silence if you've ever felt their sudden quiet reveal more than their insults ever could, and share a moment, a dream, or an inner knowing when silence told you everything. But chosen one, silence is not the end. It is the sign that vindication has already been written above you. It often begins with a strange pause, a stillness you can feel but not explain. One day you realize that the voices once loud against you have gone quiet, their weapons suddenly sheathed, their presence unervingly restrained. What once was confusion now feels like alignment, as though a hidden veil has been lifted from your sight. That moment of clarity strikes like lightning, illuminating connections you had overlooked before. A memory that once haunted you suddenly makes sense. A dream once cryptic now reads like prophecy. The silence of others is no longer emptiness but revelation, echoing truths too heavy for their tongues to bear. And in that instant, chosen one, you understand. What they cannot say aloud is the confession their silence has already made. Reality itself begins to speak in codes, whispering through the smallest fragments of your day. A repeated number on a clock, a phrase overheard in passing, a pattern in the way certain events return like waves. What once seemed random now glows with intention, as though a sacred script is written beneath the surface of your life. You start to sense the mathematics of the divine, the geometry of meaning hidden in plain sight. The scroll of your destiny is unrolling line by line, and your eyes are finally trained to read it. Their silence is not absence. It is the backdrop against which symbols rise more vividly, and you begin to realize you are not learning a new language. You are remembering one that was always yours. This remembrance sharpens the senses from within. Your intuition, once doubted, now cuts through distortion with precise clarity. You feel the shift in your body when you enter a room, the way your energy reacts before your mind catches up. Boundaries rise like walls of fire, not from bitterness but from recognition of your sacredness. People who once drained you are no longer permitted access, not because you are cruel, but because your soul has learned to guard its gates. The silence of others, their refusal to face you, becomes the strongest validation that your spirit has changed. What you once thought was rejection now reads as proof that your energy has grown undeniable. And soon, the outer world mirrors what the inner world has already become. People who mocked you now avoid your presence, unable to mask their unease. Others, sensing your shift, are drawn closer, offering unexpected kindness or opportunities that feel aligned. The balance of energy rearranges itself in ways you could never have orchestrated on your own. The architecture of the divine becomes visible, not in theories but in tangible movement. Doors closing, others opening, alliances forming in silence. Even the resistance you face now feels different, less like attack and more like acknowledgement of your significance. What was once chaos begins to look like choreography, a dance designed by something greater. This is when sacred memory stirs like an ancient flame. Dreams return that you once dismissed, carrying symbols that now glow with relevance. A childhood vision, a word spoken long ago, suddenly feels like a thread tied to this very moment. You realize you were never without guidance, only without interpretation. Like Daniel interpreting the writing on the wall, your soul begins to translate what was once undecipherable. You are not discovering a new path. You are recalling one you already walked before birth. And the silence of those around you becomes the space in which these memories breathe back to life. In this remembrance, destiny no longer feels distant. You begin to sense that the future is not being built. It is being remembered and reclaimed. The promises you felt but could never explain begin to solidify in the marrow of your being. You stop asking for permission to exist as you are and begin walking with the authority of what was always written. Prophecy rises in your chest like a song you had forgotten you knew by heart. You understand that what was hidden was never denied to you, only delayed until your eyes could bear the sight. And now the delay is over, chosen one, because you are seeing behind the veil. This is the moment of reclamation. The silence that once frightened you is revealed as proof that your truth has already prevailed. Every whisper against you has dissolved into the stillness that now surrounds your name. What they tried to bury became the soil from which your clarity has bloomed. You are not simply surviving their absence of words. You are reclaiming the voice within that was waiting for this silence to rise. Fierce and prophetic, it declares that your power was never dependent on their acknowledgement. The silence speaks because it can no longer cover what has been unveiled. So understand this, chosen one. Revelation is not an ending, but an invitation to step deeper into what has always been yours. Their silence was never emptiness. It was the sound of truth weighing on their souls until their tongues could no longer carry it. The universe has spoken louder than their accusations, and now the codes, patterns, and memories align to reveal who you are. This was not coincidence, it was timing. Comment silence if you have ever felt the weight of quiet reveal more than words. Share in the comments a dream, a sign, or a moment when silence carried the truth you needed. And prepare yourself, for beyond the silence comes vindication written in the stars. And that is where we turn next. Number 4. Vindication written in the stars. Your vindication does not need their applause. The universe itself has declared you victorious, and no clapping crowd can add to what heaven has already sealed. They thought your silence meant defeat, but it became the loudest proof of your endurance. They thought their denial would last, but it was their collapse that echoed louder than your words. You are the living embodiment of Psalm 118 verse 22. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Chosen one, your name is written in divine fire, and no hand on earth can erase it. Comment vindicated if you've seen proof that you were always carried by a higher justice, and share a memory of when you realized revenge was not needed because destiny defended you. And yet, chosen one, this vindication is not where the story ends. It is where a greater remembrance begins. It begins as a whisper older than your body, older than the years you have walked this earth. You hear it in dreams, like the turning of pages from a scroll hidden deep in your soul, a sound that feels less like discovery and more like remembrance. This whisper does not announce itself with thunder, yet it carries the gravity of prophecy, echoing through the marrow of your being. You realize that what you thought was new has always been known, as if the path beneath your feet has been waiting for your steps across lifetimes. A vision rises, not given from outside, but unsealed from within, as if your spirit had buried treasures in the soil of time and is now guiding you back to them. You were never lost, only hidden, waiting for the hour when memory would awaken as destiny. And in that awakening, chosen one, you sense that the vindication written for you was never an accident, but an inheritance. There is a name you have always carried, though the world never spoke it aloud. It is not the name written on papers or whispered by crowds, but a deeper sound that vibrates within your bones, a call that no human tongue can fully shape. The sense of being different, of never quite fitting into the molds offered by others, was not a flaw but a clue. You were the sealed scroll, carried in silence, waiting for the day heaven itself would unroll its hidden writing upon your life. Like the lost son who wandered only to be welcomed home, you were walking the distance between forgetting and remembering. And now that remembrance rises, chosen one, not as invention but as recovery. They tried to define you, but they never knew the name written in fire upon your spirit. All along you have worn a cloak unseen by most, stitched not by human hands but woven by the eternal. This cloak carried the weight of your calling, an invisible mantle that others could sense but not explain. Some were drawn to you with reverence, unable to understand why they felt safe in your presence. Others recoiled, disturbed by an energy they could not name but could never escape. That invisible mark has always set you apart, like Cain marked yet preserved, like prophets set aside in silence until their hour arrived. Words were never needed, for the resonance itself testified that you were more than the world declared. And now, chosen one, you begin to wear the cloak consciously, no longer denying the weight that has always covered you. What you thought were accidents and detours reveal themselves now as sacred contracts. Every delay was a divine appointment disguised as waiting. Every wound was a chiseling of your character, shaping you to carry what lesser vessels would have shattered under. The trials you endured were not punishments, but the sealing of your mission, as though heaven signed its name on every page of your journey. Stars have never forgotten their orbit, and neither did your destiny, no matter how far you strayed. You were not wandering aimlessly. You were walking the exact terrain necessary to sharpen your sight. And now, as the scrolls unroll, you begin to see that your entire life has been preparation for the unveiling. You begin to notice that people's reactions to you were never about the surface. Their love or their hatred, their fascination or their fear, was never about what you did but about what you carried. Some looked at you and felt hope ignite without reason. Others looked at you and felt the shadows within them stir violently. You were a mirror, chosen one, a living reflection that revealed truth without a single word spoken. This is why you were both cherished and rejected, why some clung to you and others despised you. The mystery of the chosen is not in what they achieve, but in what they awaken in others merely by existing. And so, the storms you faced were confirmations of the light you bore. Now the story lifts from personal to cosmic, and you see the larger tapestry. The path you walk is not only yours but echoes the steps of countless archetypes before you. The seer who saw what others denied, the rebel who refused false thrones, the guardian who stood at gates unseen, the breaker of chains who shattered cycles across generations. You are not alone in this remembrance. You are part of a procession written into the architecture of time. Myth rises, prophecy breathes, and the cycles converge to reveal that your life is not random, but patterned. Every symbol, every ancient echo now aligns to remind you that you are not simply surviving history, you are fulfilling it. And with each step you take, chosen one, you awaken the archetype encoded within you. This is when bloodline speaks, not of earth but of heaven. You are part of a lineage unbroken, a river of light flowing through centuries, carried in silence until this hour. The DNA of prophets, angels, and guardians stirs within you, not as metaphor but as spiritual reality. Generations that failed are being redeemed through you, chosen one, as cycles of bondage collapse and reversal begins. The codes of light engraved in your soul begin to awaken, a fire passed down like a torch across time. The ancestors who were silenced rise in your voice. The promises denied to them find fulfillment in your hands. And in this remembrance, you realize you were never ordinary. You were always the continuation of a divine bloodline. So hear this final revelation, chosen one. You did not just awaken, you returned. Every step of your life has been a circle leading you back to the beginning, to the name, the mark, the cloak, the mission that was never erased. You were always more than they said you were, always carrying the truth of what heaven declared before earth even knew your name. This moment is not coincidence. It is culmination. Comment vindicated if you feel the truth of this remembrance stirring within you, and share a dream, a memory, or a sign that reminded you of who you have always been. Because vindication is not applause. It is remembrance of what was already written. And from this place of remembrance, we now turn to the greater mystery. The expansion of your legacy written in the stars, where your light cannot be undone. What you've just walked through is the pattern that has always marked the chosen ones. They try to erase you, but cannot. They lie about you, but their lies collapse. They grow silent, but their silence is confession. And in the end, the universe vindicates you, writing your legacy not in their words but in the stars themselves. This is why your journey is sacred, why every rejection has been your proof, and why your very existence is testimony that truth cannot be buried. You are not here to prove yourself to them. You are here to embody what was written long before they even spoke your name. There are nights when a whisper wakes you, a voice not from the outside but from the marrow of your own being. It tells you that none of this was random, that every rejection, every betrayal, every silence was a thread in the tapestry already woven for you. You feel the truth like a pulse, steady and undeniable, even when the world tries to smother it beneath noise. The whisper carries authority, not because it shouts, but because it matches something you already know deep within. This is the pattern of the chosen. They cannot undo what heaven has sealed. What you survived is not just proof of your strength, but evidence of a story older than your pain. And now the whisper grows louder, not in sound, but in recognition, calling you to rise into what you always were. Think back to the moments you felt strangest, when everyone else seemed comfortable in illusions you could not digest. You were the one who noticed the cracks, the one who could not rest while others laughed in the shadow of lies. They told you that you were too much, too sensitive, too questioning, and yet those words were shields against your piercing sight. Your discomfort was never weakness. It was prophecy rattling the cages they built around truth. The longing you felt was not for ordinary belonging, but for divine alignment. You carried a homesickness for a place your feet had not yet touched in this lifetime. And that ache itself was the sign that you were chosen to remember what others forgot. Chosen one, your rise is undeniable because it was never theirs to control. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Like this video and comment "I am chosen" to let this message anchor in your soul. This message may not stay online forever. Download your copy and transcript in the vault. Ideal for journaling, inner rituals, and sacred study. The link is in the description below. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And to all the members who keep this flame alive, thank you. Your support carries this light farther each day. For full prophetic revelations daily, join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the Super Thanks button to support the mission. Every Super Thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. Until next time, Chosen One, shine in the fire they thought would bury you, for it is your crown.